Welcome, beautiful people, to Camp Koji. My name is Joel. Thank you for joining me as I break down the biggest gaming news from the week that was on the only podcast you will ever need. On today's show, we're going to talk about Marathon's director getting terminated, Nintendo's showcases, and our first look at the PlayStation 5 Pro. But first, we have to talk about Black Myth Wukong. So the Black Myth Wukong missing Xbox version at launch story took a twist last week when two separate sites claimed PlayStation paid to keep the game off Xbox. Now, to better understand the story, we have to go back through a bit of history. When Game Science released a date trailer earlier this year and it was missing an Xbox logo, fans began to wonder if the game was canceled. Game Science responded by stating that the Xbox version would miss the August 20th date because they were still optimizing the Xbox Series X and S versions. Right after that, Windows Central Jez Corden then contacted Xbox for a statement, and part of their reply stated, quote, "We can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders." So this is the first time that people felt, okay, wait a minute, maybe there actually is some sort of deal in place between PlayStation and Game Science. But obviously at that point in time, there just really wasn't any proof of something like that happening. Now, after Black Myth's launch, reputable leaker Ecstasis claims that the delay was caused or is being caused by a memory leak bug. But then after that, last week, Forbes' Paul Tassi and IGN's Kat Bailey each ran stories claiming the game did not launch on Xbox due to an exclusivity deal with Sony. They each claimed the information came from a single source. And then right after those reports, journalist Jeff Grubb said there is, quote, "no Sony money marketing deal keeping Black Myth Wukong off Xbox." Co-founder of Xbox Era, Special Nick, said, quote, "there was a misunderstanding around this stuff. I heard Sony only paid to help get the port done. No exclusivity." So this entire story has sort of turned into a bit of a mess. It's a lot of, obviously, started off as like, you know, he said, she said, they said, and now it's like he said / she said versus he said and they said. So there are these lines being drawn right down the middle of this topic in terms of who's actually telling the truth here. And it was very interesting kind of looking on Twitter, people's reactions to it, because I was very strongly against the reports from Forbes and from IGN, but actually more Forbes, the reporting from Paul Tassi. And I think it's because Paul Tassi is a writer for Forbes, but he has a really prominent presence on Twitter. He uses Twitter a lot. I don't really see Kat Bailey show up much on my feed. So maybe that's the reason why Paul Tassi sort of became the poster child of kind of being on that side of this story. And IGN's Kat Bailey sort of has been able to dodge a lot of criticism, even though she reported the literally almost pretty much the same exact thing that Paul Tassi did. It was really interesting. The articles came out, I think that it wasn't obviously at the same time. They're probably like an hour apart, I think it was. But this is kind of a bit unprecedented. I can't remember the last time that I saw two websites report on the same exact news, and they were both from, you know, anonymous sources. Someone basically blowing the whistle on something happening on the inside of a company, and it'd be these two websites kind of reporting the same thing almost close to the same exact time. There's a part of the story that to me makes that feel kind of weird, especially since they both noted that the information came from a single source. I don't know, there's just something sort of weird about that. The fact that they both they both published these stories so close to each other. And I did find it kind of weird how many people, it was pretty kind of bad. Like a lot of people were just insulting Paul Tassi. Hey, you're a liar. You're being paid by Xbox to say this, which is always one of the dumb conspiracy theories that always keeps popping back up. Everyone's paid to do stuff. Everyone's paid for propaganda nowadays. And it's obviously not what I would consider a measured response to what is happening, because at the end of the day, when this story came out, nothing really changed. We still don't really know the truth about Black Myth Wukong unless someone at Microsoft or someone at Game Science puts out either A, an official statement, or B, maybe someone at Microsoft kind of blows the whistle a bit and says, "Oh yeah, that's actually true. That's what we heard. That Sony does have some sort of deal in place." And it could be that Paul Tassi just doesn't have access to all the sort of semantics of the deal. And yes, there could be a scenario that exists where Game Science, maybe they were running out of money, they needed funds in order to finish the game, and PlayStation came through and they said, "Yeah, that's fine. We'll fund a part of it. We'll help you guys finish the game, but we would like a little bit of a quid pro quo. I'm helping you, you help me out. Don't release this game on Xbox." I don't know. The chances of PlayStation saying that, like, turn the cameras off, put your phones in your pocket. This stays between us, kind of this backdoor deal. It's as close to zero as I think you can get. I just can't imagine a company doing something like that and not drafting a formal contract and putting that type of stuff together. And then when that happens, you kind of have to kind of come to the conclusion of, well, why wasn't PlayStation pushing this game? Why wasn't... I don't think this game ever showed up at any state of plays. I could be wrong about that, but I kind of don't remember it showing up at a state of play. It was like a lot of the Keighley shows I remember. But PlayStation wasn't really pushing this game like crazy, like something that they normally would if they pay for exclusivity. So that's why a lot of people are saying, like, "Oh, this is a lie. There's no way this is true." When PlayStation pays for exclusivity, and it's, if we're talking here an exclusivity window of whatever that may be, 6 months to a year, they make it very, very known that they paid for it, because obviously they want people to buy the PlayStation version of the video game. It's a very, very good assessment to make based on all the information. But the other part of this is that people do need to understand that this isn't just like a random Twitter account. This wasn't Paul Tassi tweeting about this or Kat Bailey tweeting about this. It was an official article on these big media sites. And for a rumor like this to be put out there, it's not like something where Paul Tassi can, from his house, write an article and just click publish and walk away from the keyboard, right? An editor and probably multiple people have to see what he wrote. And then Paul Tassi and Kat Bailey would have to prove their sources, right? They would have to share their whatever trail they have, whether it's a paper or a voice trail, them speaking to somebody, to, more than likely a legal representative of these two websites, because they would be they could be held liable if this was not true. This was a lie. And obviously at that point you would have to put out what's called an official retraction of your story in order to kind of minimize the risk of something like that happening. But I understand that we're in this moment right now where no one wants to believe journalists. It's kind of a really... I want to say it's an unfortunate time, but at times it can be unfortunate, because we're living in this moment now where information and truth, it seems like there is no authority that can be trusted at this point. Like everyone wants to instantly call people liars without any proof at all, that they're lying. And at the very least, they won't look at it like logically from that point of view of like, in order for that to be published on that website, someone from legal will have to look at it, and they would have to feel comfortable enough to go, okay, it looks like this source is really, really strong. It looks like they are from whatever, Game Science or Xbox, I don't know. And they are in a position that they would be able to know this data. They've been able to prove their employment, blah, 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 whatever that may be. And it's like people will kind of toss that aside and just go, nope, you're lying. I don't see how these two websites would just come up with something randomly. I will say the only thing that's weird is just the fact that they both did at the same time. I'm not going to try to say that there's some conspiracy going out there. I'm not going to go that far. But I think this is one of those moments where it really is okay to have a wait and see approach. It's okay to look at a news story like this and go, yeah, I kind of don't know really what to believe. You have people on two sides. There are some people that they were noting that are like leakers. They're like, oh, this leaker said, no, that's not true. Black Myth is just having trouble. Obviously, we have Exorcist, who is a pretty reliable leaker. The guy obviously has a few inside sources at these companies. And he's saying, nope, from what I heard, it's just a memory leak bug. So you have them against these media journalists. And right now, the trust of media is so low that a lot of people would just, they'd rather trust the people that don't have to do their due diligence, that don't have a legal team to answer to, that don't have to prove their sources, really, right? We know that a lot of leakers, it's, throwing 10 darts at a board and hoping one of them hits the bullseye. But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm more interested by the response from everybody than even actually the story itself. It could be that, when Special Nick and Jeff Grubb are saying, especially Special Nick is saying, oh no, Sony just paid to get the port done. It could be that was what caused this exclusivity. And, Paul Tassi either does not have access to that particular information, or he's not sharing that particular information in order to protect his source. When you are a journalist, that is almost priority number one, is you're trying your best to protect the source that gave you this information. And the more details that you release about a situation, the likelier you're putting that person at risk of being caught as the person who blew this whistle and potentially getting fired. And it's obviously not something that you want to have happen if you are a journalist. Now, Jez Corden claims that he is gathering more information. It kind of sounds like he's going to put out some sort of article next week, so maybe there's some more new information about this. The other part about it is Xbox itself. Like, Xbox, to me, has no incentive to make up that line when they said we can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders. That's not a normal thing to say, right? If someone tells you, hey, why is Black Myth not on Xbox? A normal response would be, yeah, we're always working with our partners to make sure that, when their games release on our console is in the highest quality, and that's what we're going to do with Game Science, something like that. That makes sense. To volunteer this information out of nowhere and say, yeah, we can't comment on deals, when at that point in time, no one was talking about a deal. When that game was not coming to Xbox, the moment that Game Science said, yeah, we're optimizing the Series X and S versions, everyone went, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. We know that a lot of developers always talk about how hard and not easy it is to optimize for the Xbox Series S, so that's probably why there's a delay to this game. And then for Xbox to sort of volunteer this information and say, yeah, we don't comment on deals made by our partners, that was like the first kind of, I don't want to say red flag, but like the red siren of like, wait a minute, something's kind of weird here. Why would they say that if there wasn't a deal in place? And like I said, there really is no incentive for Xbox to like voluntarily lie. They could have just said no comment. You'll have to, ask Game Science what's going on with the game. Or like I said, oh yeah, we're going to help them in order to make sure that they deliver the best version of their game on Xbox. So that's sort of the other part of it. If you are sitting there saying like, well, Paul Tass is a liar, you have to also say that this multi-billion-dollar company called Xbox is also lying about this situation. So yeah, this is weird. I think there might be some truth to both sides of this, but I think that the best course of action for this controversy is to just wait and see. Right now, I don't know if I'm game science and someone is making these claims, I probably would have already came forward and put out a statement. Game science just doesn't look like they like to talk about any sort of controversial anything about black myth. They didn't once. It seems like they didn't really address that IGN article that happened. It looks like they're really trying to stay away from all this stuff. And I think even Xbox at this point, like this is something that is potentially damaging to your brand, because right now everyone's saying like, oh, Series S, what a piece of garbage. It can't run this. That's the problem. It's like you think that someone at Xbox would want to come forward, defend themselves and say, no, that's actually not it. We are, the game cannot come to the system for a period of time, an undisclosed period of time or something like that. But yeah, I think the best course of action is just pretty much wait and see. Our next story is about Marathon, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because I don't really have much to add, but I think that it's a story that everyone should be aware of. So according to Bloomberg, former Marathon director Christopher Barrett was fired by Bungie after being accused of inappropriate behavior. Following an internal investigation, at least 8 female employees raised complaints that he had behaved inappropriately towards them. Barrett was said to have told lower-level female employees they were attractive, asked them to play Truth or Dare, and suggested that he could help them to advance their careers because of his wealth and power in the industry. You know how the type of person that you have to have 8 employees complain about you? Like, that is such an incredibly large number. And I noticed that some of the reactions that I saw to this are, a similar reaction that I have, which is it's pretty incredible how someone can have access to a job, probably, pretty well paying, kind of a cool job of being able to direct a video game, have a proper budget and company behind you to help you direct and sort of create this vision that you may have for a video game. And you lose it because you don't know how to act in the workplace. It's kind of baffling when you really think about it. The fact that this person was just not able to help themselves. And I've spoken about this anytime we talk about these types of stories, which is it really just exposes a lot of it is just the power dynamic. It's like they say, you want to know the true test of a man, just give him power and see what he does with it. And this is really a testament to that statement. It's when someone has power, how do they wield it? And for a lot of people, it is this sense of superiority that they get, and they obviously abuse the power that's been given to them. I will say, like, if you talk to anyone that has been part of almost any workplace, you'll hear some sort of degree of that, of a similar story of a man who acted inappropriate towards women. And a lot of those times it's because there was a power dynamic existed there. It's kind of psychologically sound at this point that the likelihood of something like that happening to a person that's once again in power kind of rises above someone who might just be an entry-level male employee. But yeah, like I said, I don't really have much to add here. This would obviously be another one of the reasons why Marathon might be having a bit of trouble right now. Changing directors is not really the easiest feat to have or easiest problem to solve. It can definitely add time to a game's development run. So obviously this will affect the game, but yeah, I think it's good news to find out this person was fired. And like I said, I just really don't have much more to add to the story. That was really the gist of it, what I said. And I just wanted to report it to make sure that we were all aware that something like this happened. So next story, we're going to talk about these two Nintendo showcases. One was an Indie Direct, and then that was followed by a partner direct. And yeah, we're going to go through some of these updates for both of those. I'm just going to go through what I would consider some of the major ones. We're not going to go over every single one. But the Indie Showcase started with Balatro getting a free update. It's a collab with The Witcher, Vampire Survivors, Dave the Diver, and Among Us. We got a new look at Neva from the same team behind Gris, or maybe Grease. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. That comes out October 15th. That looks kind of cool. Sea of Stars is getting a free DLC called Throes of Watchmaker coming next spring. Power Wash Simulator is getting Shrek Special Pack Fall 2024. It's pretty cool to see this game kind of continue to get these packs. I thought that was a smart idea, what they've been doing, sort of partnering. I remember they had like a SpongeBob one, partnering with these different IP in order to bring them to Power Wash. I thought that was really, really smart. Just really, really good use of DLC, instead of just, new suits or new costumes or something like that. I think it's pretty cool they've been doing that. That's such a weird game. Power Wash Simulator is such a weird game. I remember it being added to Game Pass, and I was like, why the hell do people keep talking about this game? And then I started it, and I'm pretty sure I got all the achievements. I can't really explain why that game is so addictive. There is like this relaxing quality to it, even though the game can be kind of frustrating at times. You might have to find like the tiniest speck of dust in order to clear an area. That gets annoying, but yeah, I don't really understand why the game is kind of addictive, but it sort of is. There was a game called Morsels from Team Furcula and Annapurna coming February 2025. That actually looks kind of neat. And Pizza Tower was announced. It released the same day. So yeah, that was kind of what I would consider the really big stuff from the Indie Showcase. The Partner Showcase, we have Tetris Forever coming 2024. It's pretty cool. It's like all these different versions of Tetris throughout its history in one package. That was kind of nice. The NES version of Tetris and a Tetris 99 Maximus event are coming to Switch Online this winter. A game called Star Overdrive looked kind of neat. That's a timed console exclusive launching next year. Goat Simulator 3 was dropped with a physical version coming in November. Stalker Legends of the Zone Trilogy is coming November 2024. Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition coming September 26th. I remember I used to love the Worms games. I haven't played one in such a long time, though. SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game, was announced coming October 4th. Fitness Boxing 3, Your Personal Trainer, coming December 5th. Capcom Fighting Collection 2 was announced coming in 2025. This was definitely one of the highlights of the show. Seeing games like Power Stone in there. I think Project Justice was on there. Just a really, really cool collection. I really like what Capcom's been doing lately. They are one of those few companies that has access to a pretty nostalgic history. And I think what I've been liking with what a lot of companies been doing lately, Capcom, I also have to commend, I was about to say condemn, Konami, just because I'm usually doing that. I do have to commend Konami, just in the sense of kind of going back in time, bringing these games forward, and, treating them with a bit of respect, modernizing them to the point that people would expect, so adding online multiplayer for a game like Power Stone, and adding, rollback netcode for these games and stuff like that. I think those are expectations that people would have, that I think if we were having these discussions like 7 years ago, we wouldn't be seeing this. It would just be like this very cheap re-release of something old. And it's really cool that they've been putting like these collections together. I think it's an amazing value. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. It's definitely one of the highlights for a lot of people of this show. We don't have a date, just a year, 2025. And just like every other kind of Capcom thing, it's skipping Xbox. So there's obviously, some issue happening over there. This has to be like the fourth or fifth old re-release compilation that Capcom is releasing that is missing from Xbox. Some people have brought up that it might have something to do with what's called the MT framework, which I just personally think that Capcom did the math and just financially it's just not making sense, which is interesting to me because that means that this is a pretty expensive problem. Because when you look at games like this Fight Collection, when you look at the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, those are games that would definitely sell on Xbox. So the fact that for whatever reason, no matter how many copies they sell, the math still wouldn't work for these games to come to Xbox, it must be a major, major problem. Jez Corden, I think a month ago, said that Xbox has begun working with Capcom to try to solve whatever issue this is. So maybe these games will eventually come to Xbox in the future. Now, we did also get a date for that Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. It's coming digitally September 12th, and a physical version is releasing November 22nd, or the physical version. We got Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories at the Envision Land was shown. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunin Unification Wars. And it's the longest game names ever. That has a date of March 6, 2025. A new look at Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake coming November 14th. So once again, if you love these types of RPGs, you are eating very, very good for Switch. Like when you think about the entire timeline of Switch, like if you're into JRPGs, like this is like the holy grail of systems for you. Castlevania Dominus Collection was announced. This bundles 3 DS games. Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia, Dawn of Sorrow, and it also has the arcade title Haunted Castle. So all that is in one package that released same day, released across multiple platforms. So definitely check that out. Those games are phenomenal. I haven't played those DS games in such a long time. Those are so good. Civilization 7 is coming to Switch February 11th. Tales of Grace's F is getting a remaster coming January 17th. My Sims Cozy Bundle includes re-releases of My Sims and My Sims Kingdom coming November 19th. We got Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 is launching this holiday. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma launches next spring. And then finally, the video that ended the show, Yakuza Kiwami, is making its way to Switch on October 24th. Looks pretty good. I think it's one of those games that honestly I never even thought about. Like, oh yeah, Yakuza has never been on Switch. This is the first one. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully it does well. Then they'll probably bring the rest of the series over to Nintendo Switch. And that was pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. I thought it was just fine. I think it accomplished the task at hand. I wasn't expecting any huge bombshells, and I think it delivered sort of on that front. This could possibly be the last Nintendo showcase before we get an announcement of whatever the successor to the Nintendo Switch was. But yeah, when you look at these games plus what Nintendo has coming up, the Zelda game coming out in October, it's really hard, or it's really easy to say that Nintendo Switch definitely will end its life cycle with arguably one of the greatest gaming lineups for a console we have ever seen, especially when it comes to first party. It might be the strongest first party lineup we've ever seen. To start this generation with launching Breath of the Wild, closely followed by this amazing Mario Odyssey game, and then everything else that they've brought over to the system has been pretty phenomenal to watch. And I've said this before, where this generation, when you think about the Switch, it sort of fell in the seam between these two generations of Xbox and PlayStation. But when you especially when you pit the Switch against PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, I think Switch definitely gave you the best value as a consumer. For when you think about it, when you buy a system, it really is an investment. You're investing into that console and saying, here's $300, $400, $500. Hopefully you're going to feed me with enough games for me to sort of justify this purchase and feel really good about my purchase. And I think you'd be crazy to not feel good about your Nintendo Switch purchase, even if you bought it directly at launch 7 years ago. I think you, as a fan, if you're a Nintendo fan, and these are the types of games that you love, have been very, very, very well fed. And as I said, especially if you think about if you're into RPGs or if you're just into Nintendo, all types of Nintendo games, whether it's the sports games or whatever it is that you like that they put out there. It's just been a really, really solid run for Nintendo Switch. Now, moving on to our final story, I wanted to talk about this PlayStation 5 Pro leaking, but I want to go over two stories first. So first off, the price of the PlayStation 5 and its accessories and peripherals has gone up in Japan. The hardware will increase around $90 USD alongside DualSense controllers, PSVR 2, and PlayStation Portals. Everything is going up in price over in Japan. It is now the third price increase in Japan since the console released in 2020. And as soon as this happened, I saw some reports, some people making this claim that this is due to Black Myth Wukong and the success it's having in China. But I don't think that there's enough information to reach that conclusion at this point in time. A lot of people are saying like, hey, the system's being sold out everywhere in China. PlayStation sees an opportunity here, and they decided to raise the price because of a lot of Chinese tourists going into Japan and buying the system to take back to China. I don't think there's enough information to support that theory, to be honest. There's a lot of competing sort of evidence, right? This is the third price increase in Japan. These price increases are occurring in Japan because of their economy. The yen is weak. It's a lot stronger than it was, even just as short as just a year ago. But it's still very much in what would be considered a recovery. And the other thing that I think that throws a little bit of water on that Black Myth theory is Xbox also raised the price of the console in Japan. They raised the price of the Xbox Series X and S. I believe it was like 3 weeks ago. So it just kind of goes to show you that both of these companies are doing this because they have to, because no company wants to sell a product and just bleed every single time it gets sold. They need to make some sort of money off of it. And because of the strength of the yen right now, or I guess the weakness of the yen, this price increase has to happen. So yeah, I think that's just the reason why it happened. And I also wanted to talk about Concord sales. So IGN ran a story last week where analyst Simon Carless states that he estimates Concord has only sold 25,000 copies as of August 28th, around 15,000 on PS5 and 10,000 on Steam. Not very good. So Circana analyst Matt Piscatella claims Concord ranked 147th in US PS5 daily active players across all titles, with fewer than 0.2% of Monday's active PS5 players playing the game. Concord did peak at 697 concurrent Steam players, and the number continues to drop. Its last peak as of the time of this recording was 151 players. So it's trending towards a possible double digits. So, actually, I literally just checked it right now. It's actually at 125. I'm mistaken, not 151. The last 24-hour peak was 125 players. So it's very, very likely that at this pace, by about Wednesday, their peak is going to be below 100 players. I didn't think about it for too long. Like, I didn't think about it to the point that I sat down and started writing it down. But I thought about it for a bit, and I think it's definitely safe to say that this is one of PlayStation's biggest flops, biggest failures. but it honestly might be the biggest failure they've ever personally had as a company. This is something that is so rare to come out of PlayStation, to have something launch and do this bad. It's kind of insane. I think we, and obviously I include myself, knew that this was going to not do well. I mean, I knew from the moment that first trailer played and I saw that gameplay, I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. I said it from the very, very beginning. And I think a lot of people understood, like, yeah, this is not going to do good. When I played the beta and then Steam went into an open beta for a weekend and they peaked at 2,200 players, I said, yep, this is now definitely going to fail. There's absolutely nothing they can do now. This game is being sent to die. For you to have free access to a brand new video game and only 2,200 people show up on PC, the largest platform in our industry outside of mobile, that's just, it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, I don't know exactly how accurate this estimate would be. 15,000 on PS5, 10,000 on Steam. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly how accurate something like that would be. 25,000 copies is crazy. And once you think about it, if that analyst was off by 1,000%, it would still be a failure. 250,000 copies still wouldn't really be very well, for a game that is reported to have $100 million budget and took what's being reported as 8 years, but I would say at the very least 6 years of development time to create. It's pretty baffling. And, a lot of people I see online are still saying it's because this game wasn't free to play. I think they're wrong. I think if this game was free to play, I still don't see a path to success here. I think they definitely would have obviously had a much higher peak, but I think those players would have dropped off very, very quickly. Deadlock right now is still in private alpha. I don't even think that's a beta. I think it's technically still an alpha, and they have close to 150,000 concurrent players. Marvel, when it was still in closed beta, I think the peak was at 50,000. I think it was for Marvel Rivals. Let me see if I can pull it up. No, I don't think there's a chart for this because it was like a beta or a closed beta. I don't think SteamDB has a chart for it. But yeah, there was still like a good number of players playing the game during that closed beta period. The fact that this game was completely open and still only 2,000 players show up shows you that even if this game was free to play, it would have failed. It would have not have looked as bad, but there's no way this game would have lasted. I think it's really simple. I mean, when we look at this game and we think about what happened, why did it fail? It's definitely like 5 years too late. That's the assessment number one. But I still think that this probably is one of the only games that I feel very comfortable in saying that it was almost exclusively ruined by its character design. It's kind of insane. When you have a hero shooter, hero design is very, very important. That's like the number one takeaway here. It's the number one lesson. It doesn't matter how many focus groups you have to pay for. Make sure that the heroes actually make sense. Because this game still, definitely has some of the worst designs I've ever seen in any video game, period. Like really, really bad designs. And I think that was definitely the issue at hand here. At this point, unfortunately, I just don't see a path to success for this game. I've said this before. Even this game going free to play, it's going to take time. You can't just turn a game free to play. You have to build a way to sustain it. And this game was never built that way. That was like their selling point. Oh, you pay $40. There's no battle passes, nothing like that. Now they have to build these systems into the game in order to make it free to play. And that's something that could probably take, months. It could probably take like 7-8 months at a minimum in order for something like that to happen. the only short-term solution that they can find or they can implement would be next month adding this to PlayStation Plus. But it's just kind of one of those things where even with that, I just, you do that in the hope that people download it and maybe more people are talking about it, and that leads to more sales. It's not a bad tactic, because there is one thing that I will say about this game. When you play it, it feels really good. Like from a technical perspective, it's good. A lot of the kits are interesting. Barring, like I said, the character designs are awful, but some of the kits are actually really interesting. It does have really good team play dynamics in this game. There are a lot of really cool mechanics when it comes to the way that you use abilities in this game. So I think it is one of those games that once you try it, I think it does click a little bit better. But I feel like you still get back to the same issue of then the new thing comes out. So in December, boom, Marvel Rivals comes out, and I think everyone abandons this game to go to Marvel Rivals because it's just a better, more recognizable solution to the same exact game. So, yeah, unfortunately, you just kind of, Sony's going to have to hold this L. I don't think this is going to drastically affect their live service plan. What people need to understand about live services is high risk, high reward. So for PlayStation, it's like, okay, this is just a risk we're willing to take. So we just had one of our biggest successes. We were on cloud 9 with Hellblade, Helldivers 2, which, honestly is not doing as well as it did at launch. It lost like over 90% of its player base, but I still think that Helldivers can still have it still has strong legs. I think that there's still a lot that they can do to reinvigorate that game. I don't think it's a dead game like people keep saying. And then you had this one. So you went from like your biggest success to your biggest miss, but this is the beginning. A lot of people forget this. This is the beginning of PlayStation's live service journey. I think, you have to break a few eggs, I guess. So when I think a lot of people are concerned about the upcoming Fair games, for example, I think that one's going to be kind of fine as long as the game plays and looks good, because it's supposed to be like in the heist genre, which it's obviously not saturated. So I think that there is room for a game like Fair games. So let's move on now to the PlayStation 5 Pro. So website Deal Labs leaked the design of the upcoming PlayStation 5 Pro. It's very similar in design to the current Slim models and looks to be taking advantage of swappable plates and the disk drive add-on that are currently on the market. Deal Labs only saw a digital version, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a physical bundle won't be released. Now, they claim that they saw, I think, like final packaging for the system, but in order to, I guess, save themselves from liability, they did not share that photo. They recreated the PlayStation 5 Pro in an illustration that they shared. The front has 2 USB-C ports and is expected to ship with a 1 terabyte drive. That has not been confirmed. Pricing has not been revealed, but rumors are currently suggesting $599, which would mean if they do have a disc bundle, that would be at $699, a cool $700. An announcement is expected in the first half of September. Jeff Grubb claims a state of play is being planned for September, so it's possible that that is where this system will be announced. I think that this definitely does need an announcement. A lot of people, I've seen some rumors saying that, no, it's just going to be a blog post. But I don't know. Like, I feel like if you announce a $600 system, it's probably best to accompany it with some sort of video that shows the advantages of getting PlayStation 5 Pro. Because I would have to imagine that everything first party is just going to look and run better. So even if you're putting together a scissor reel of here is what God of War Ragnarok now looks on the PS5 Pro. Here's what Spider-Man 2 looks like. Death Stranding 2 is going to have a showcase at Tokyo Game Show. Chances are pretty likely now that that version that they're going to show us is going to be running on PlayStation 5 Pro. And we know how graphically intense and gorgeous Kojima games are. So that is literally the perfect showcase to try to, I think, sell the PlayStation 5 Pro. I think it's a good first game to really show what the system is capable of. There have been rumors that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is being planned as one of the final releases for PlayStation 5 in terms of its life cycle. So that game would obviously probably look really good taking advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro. So I think there are a few games that they have in order to show this off. So I think a state of play actually would make more sense in order to announce something like this instead of it just being a blog post. Yeah, this is really interesting. You know, a lot of people have been asking the question is this necessary? Why do we need this? And, you know, this is not really out of the norm. If I'm not mistaken, the PlayStation 4 Pro happened within three years of the PlayStation 4's release. It was either 3 or 4. So this releasing, it looks very likely it's going to release this November, would mean that it is 4 years into the cycle of the PlayStation 5. And so a lot of people are saying, like, what's the point of this system if the current system is not, you know, it doesn't feel like they're taking full advantage of the current PlayStation 5's power. I think this is a really stupid way to look at this. I've always thought this was silly. I've always thought this was stupid. I sort of felt the same way with PlayStation Portal, where it was kind of one of those things where on one hand, you have these people like, this is useless, this doesn't make any sense. But then on the other hand, it's like, if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't automatically mean that this thing shouldn't exist or there's no reason for this. And I've brought this up plenty of times before, which is companies don't do things on a whim, right? Companies don't sit around and say, hey, should we release a PlayStation 5 Pro? And then maybe someone comes up with some specs and they go, yep, looks good. Let's go to market. Let's start building this thing. No, that's not how this works. They test the market. They focus test it. When they create something, they feel very, very confident that when they create this thing, it's going to resonate. They are going to get a response. They're going to get the sales that they desire out of it. It's not done by chance. It's not done on a whim. Oh, well, hopefully people buy this thing, right? You know, like, yes, you have your misses, right? Sometimes, you know, you can do everything right and it still doesn't work out. But if this is being created, that means that PlayStation has the data to support that there is a market for this. Is it an enormous market? No, but it is a market. And yeah, people just kind of need to get out of this mentality where they feel like if something isn't made for them, then it shouldn't be made at all. It's this really weird phenomenon that I see a lot on social media. It's so weird, where it's almost like looking at graphics cards. It's like, you know, I have a $500 graphic card and I have a $600 graphic card. And you look at the $600 one, it's like, oh yeah, it gives a little bit more sharpness. Maybe the lighting's a little bit better. You know, I don't need that. You know, the $500 one is fine. Yeah, no one needs a luxury good. You also don't need a base PlayStation 5. You don't need a PlayStation 4, right? You know, like, this is a want. But there are people that would want more consistent ray tracing, that want that 60 frames completely locked, that want more games that are able to do maybe ray tracing with 60 frames per second, and whatever else this new system is going to be capable of. And I think that PlayStation understands that. I don't think that this is going to be something where they're going to flood the market with units. I think that they do understand that this is going to be a subset of a subset of a consumer that are going to be going after the PlayStation 5 Pro. For me personally, it's an automatic no. I just see zero reason to do it. You know, the next PlayStation game I'm buying is Astrobot. I mean, how's that going to take advantage of a Pro? You know, Death Stranding 2, I mean, you know, I'm an enormous fan of the first Death Stranding. So if there's something like, I don't know, there's something special about that PS5 Pro version of Death Stranding 2, I might be a bit tempted to sell my current PlayStation 5 and then use that money towards a Pro. Maybe I'll be able to make it $300. I don't know. But at this moment in time, yeah, there's really no reason for me to upgrade. The biggest one that a lot of people are bringing up really is going to be Grand Theft Auto 6. So Grand Theft Auto 6, by default, PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be the best place to play Grand Theft Auto 6 at launch, because this system comes out this year and Grand Theft Auto is slated for next fall. So I guarantee you that PlayStation has already picked up the phone months ago. The moment that they sent Rockstar that PlayStation 5 Pro kit, they probably had it hand delivered with like 5 engineers, right? That was not shipped by any sort of secure means. It was or secure third party means. It was secure first party means. I feel very confident that they hand delivered that unit to Rockstar, and Herman Holtz got on the phone with Strauss Zelnick, the head of Take-Two, and was like, I'm hand delivering my PlayStation 5 Pro with 5 engineers. You can keep them for a month. They're going to be there to teach your guys how to completely optimize the PlayStation 5 Pro. We want to make sure you guys get the best version of Grand Theft Auto 6 out there. And PlayStation, I'm telling you, would spare zero expense to ensure that if there's a possibility that Grand Theft Auto 6 can be run at 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5 Pro, they're going to help Rockstar do it. There is zero, I really do believe, zero chance that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be more than 30 frames at launch. On these base consoles, it's definitely going to be 30 frames. There's really no reason for their engineers to rack their brains to try to get it to 60 FPS for a game that large. And when you look at the fidelity of the game from what we saw, there's no way that game's going to be 60 FPS for the base consoles. So for PlayStation 5 Pro to be able to do that and maybe even enter into some sort of bundle deal with Rockstar and be able to make that claim of, this is the best place to play Grand Theft Auto 6. This is the only place to play 60 frames per second, because we know that this game is not going to launch on PC. They can dominate that claim because it doesn't look like Xbox is going to make a pro version. There's really no reason for them to make a pro version. So yeah, I think that there is room on the market for a PlayStation 5 Pro. I don't like this assessment of like, oh, there's no need for this. This is just the basis, as I said, of any luxury good. Like, yeah, I personally don't understand why anyone would pay $200 for a pair of sneakers, right? I don't understand why someone would pay $500 for a t-shirt, right? But if you have to ask yourself, why does this thing exist? Why would anyone pay $600 or $700 for a console? Is because you're talking about a subset of consumer that has the means, right? That means that they're financially stable enough to drop $600, $700 on a piece of video game entertainment, and there's a desire for them for that consumer. So that's just basic supply and demand. PlayStation is going to take advantage of something like that. If they're selling this a PlayStation 5 Pro, it's probably going to be as close to profitable for each unit as they can possibly get it, especially because these new units are going to be, a lot of the parts are going to be cheaper to make and manufacture, because that's just a natural order of a console over time. So yeah, I think that there is a place for this. If you don't understand it, then that just means that this isn't for you, and that's perfectly fine. The base PlayStation 5 is still going to play these games really, really well. But I think you just look at it case by case, depending on whatever game is coming out. Maybe Wolverine just looks so much better, runs a lot smoother, and that's enough to entice you to get the PlayStation 5 Pro. For me, there's only two things that would convince me. Number one, I'll be honest, Death Stranding 2, if there's something visually about it, if it's like, yeah, if you buy the PlayStation 5 Pro, you'll be able to play Death Stranding 2 at 60 frames. I'm not going to lie, that feels very tempting, because I was such a huge fan of the first one. I finished that game twice, and I kind of want to go back for a third one. And the only other one would be like, yeah, Grand Theft Auto 6. That's very appealing to me, to be able to play that game at 60 frames per second. at launch. It sounds really, really good. This week's hot releases, we have a few. It's going to be a big week. September 3rd, we have The Castle of Frank Stone, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. We have Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. That's coming to all platforms. It will also be available on PlayStation Plus. Spectre Divide is launching on PC, also September 3rd. And finally, we have Bakeru coming PC and Switch. September 4th, we have Age of Mythology Retold. That's PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Game Pass. September 6th, we have NBA 2K25. That's on all platforms. Ace Attorney Investigations Collection, also on all platforms. And then finally, we have Astrobot coming to PlayStation 5, also on September 6th, which looks phenomenal. Time for us to wrap it up. These are stories that we didn't have time to get to. Annapurna announced they were co-financing Control 2 and working with Remedy to adapt Control and Alan Wake for film, TV, and beyond. This is pretty cool news. It's always been really interesting to see. Remedy has always been able to find financing for their games. Epic helped them finance Alan Wake 2. Now they're turning to Annapurna in order to help them finance Control 2, which is really interesting, especially because of the fact that Alan Wake 2 is still kind of struggling a bit to break even, which really sucks. It shows how expensive that game was to make. So I'm sure Annapurna can probably look at Control 2 as a bit of a risk. Might be actually more of a minimal risk than Alan Wake 2, though, so just because Control is a little bit more of a recent franchise. But I think that Remedy has kind of been firing on all cylinders, so hopefully it'll do really well. I love the idea of bringing Control Alan Wake for film, TV. A lot of people are saying, look, just use the same actors that they were using from the games. But part of me kind of disagrees, especially when it comes to Alan Wake, because of the fact that you have a voice and the voice and the performance are separated. That might work for a few cutscenes here and there for a video game, but that might be really tough to do for a TV or film. They would probably have to use AI in order to make it look really good. But I actually hope that they don't adapt the games. I really think that this is a play where you create just a really cool kind of X-Files type of show that you can introduce to any consumer. But for us as gamers, we would enjoy it a little bit more because it takes place in these universes. I think that's the play here. The Remedy Connected Universe supports a lot of different types of stories from different timelines and different parts of the world that you can do that. And maybe you have an Easter egg of Alan Wake or something like that. Or Jesse, what's her name? Jesse Faden, I think her name was, from Control. But I actually would prefer original stories, original characters. And like I said, maybe some, we cool, having the I forgot the name of the character, but the doctor character from Control, completely forgot his name. Or having the janitor or something like that. That might be kind of neat. But yeah, I wouldn't rehash the games personally. Square Enix announced that Foam Stars is going free to play October 4th. That is 8 months after its release. So yeah, this is one of those games that a lot of people agreed that probably should have been free to play at the very beginning. I still kind of hate this. I hate this moment that we're at where people complain about free to play. They just don't like free to play. But then they also say that a game that's being sold, well, you should have been free to play. That's why you failed. It's like, you can't have it both ways. I think it's just important to take a game and really do the research and think about it and say, okay, is this something that we have to put free to play or have a free to play track? And I think Foam Stars was definitely one of those that would have benefited from a free to play track, meaning that it's free to start, meaning that you can play the game and maybe you only have access to a few characters per week and you have to pay to unlock the rest. It's a very multiverses but have it like a hybrid where you can just pay the $40 and unlock everything automatically. I think that's a play that more companies need to look into. I think Concord would have benefited from it. Foam Stars would have benefited from it. But it also just, once again, it goes to show you that the live service thing is such a higher risk. I mean, XDefiant, there was a report last week that they're struggling to have 20,000 players across all platforms. And it looks like it's sort of on its last legs. It's just not doing well. Ubisoft doesn't know how much longer they can support it. Yeah, it just kind of goes to show that this is not an easy market, I guess. Konami has hinted that Metal Gear Solid 4 is finally leaving PlayStation 3 jail and could be included in Volume 2 of the Metal Gear Solid collection. You know, I still have my physical copy of Metal Gear Solid 4. I have the collector's edition, and I don't even own a PlayStation 3 anymore. It was just one of my favorite games, and I won't sell it. But I haven't actually played it in a while. I've been saying to myself that I should probably try to emulate it so I can play it again. But I loved it. I thought it was such a cool game. So, I give Konami a lot of shit. I just do give them a lot of shit. But I mean, credit where credit's due. You know, if they're able to do this, and it looks like they will be able to do it, I mean, that's just W's all around. There's really no other way to look at it. This is a game that a lot of people have not been able to play because it's stuck on PlayStation 3. There's no backwards compatibility. You know, there's no PC version. There's really no easy way to access this outside of emulation. So if they're able to pull this off, credit where credit's due. And finally, in an interview with Eurogamer, Shinji Mikami claims he was surprised to hear about fan requests for a new Dino Crisis. Quote, so even if I were to decide to make a remake or a new version of Dino Crisis, I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of space for that kind of game right now, just since Monster Hunter has become such a big game. But yeah, it is surprising. I 100% agree with him. Dino Crisis would not work nowadays. If you think Dino Crisis would work, it's just because you play as a kid and you loved it so much and the nostalgia is speaking for you. That game would not do well. Survival horror doesn't really sell well. And when you talk about survival horror with dinosaurs, like, it just seems like such a lame concept nowadays that for this modern audience, it wouldn't work. But I think that there is something that Capcom could do. I think that a really stripped down remake of the original would be really good, meaning that you're just up-resing it a bit. Don't go crazy, Resident Evil 4 style, do third person, super high res. I wouldn't do all that. I would just bump the textures up by a lot, maybe improve some animations, obviously character models, definitely. Don't touch the voice acting. Absolutely no re-recorded lines. Bring the voice acting back exactly the way that it was. Same thing, tank controls, same cameras and stuff like that, and re-release it for like $20. I think that would actually do well. That would be satisfying, I think, for the Dino Crisis fans. And I think that would be a good release. But a remake it just wouldn't be worth the risk. Shout-outs go out to Hideaki Itsuno, who announced he will be leaving Capcom after 30 years to create something new elsewhere. His work included Dragon's Dogma, Devil May Cry, and Power Stone. And also shout-out to, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Yuka Studios. The developer behind Visions of Mana is reportedly set to close as part of an overall scaling back of an investment in Japanese studios by NetEase and Tencent. Visions of Mana just released last week. And honestly, I didn't know Visions of Mana was releasing. I think when I did my hot releases last week, I think I even missed the game. I don't know where the marketing went for this game. I remember Xbox pushed it. They put it on their developer direct, which was a pretty big deal. I think it was the only, actually not even, I think it was the only third party game that they put on their developer direct. They gave it like its own 10, 15 minutes or something like that. It was such a big deal. And then I checked and Xbox tweeted about this game twice. So I don't know exactly, all year. So I don't know exactly what happened to the marketing of this game, but it's pretty sad to see that this is kind of where we are as an industry. You take this risk, and then the game just comes out, and it's tracking so low that you're like, yeah, we're going to have to shut this studio down. Make sure to subscribe to Camp Koji, your favorite podcast platform, so you can listen to it on the go. And if you already are, please leave us a review. It helps more than You know it. Thank you so much for joining me. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube at Camp Koji for future updates. Once again, I'm Joel, and I will see you all next week.